This is a mess. This is a mess. Can you imagine?
TNT Podcast.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. So today I am doing Joe Rogan and Candace Owens, and this is talking about the incident that made Candace Owens a conservative. Now, I remember Candace actually came to Atlanta, and it was like, I don't know if it was a hip hop summit or what, but I remember her being on the stage with T.I. and a bunch of other people. And I just remember T.I. being so rude to her, wouldn't let her finish her thought. And she was making a really good point, and people in the audience were booing her. And it really made me feel some type of way. And what made me admire her, because I listened to her speak like when she had like an Instagram account, and this is before she became like really big. She stands for what she believes in, and she does not waver. She stands on what she believes, and not a lot of people can say that. I think a lot of times people can move with the wind or whatever best suits them at the time. They don't like to rock the boat. But Candace Owens, she has been consistent. And so today we're going to find out what made her a conservative, because as some of you may know, a lot of Black people will not openly admit that they are a conservative because it will be met with a lot of backlash. I was about to say blacklash, Lord. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it, see what they're talking about. Let's go.
You're a very popular, what I would call conservative thinker.
Yeah.
But you're very young.
I am.
Like, how did this all happen? How did you become this Fox News personality, conservative thinker?
Yeah, I mean, I just launched a YouTube channel, and
Oh, fucking YouTube.
yeah, YouTube where magic happens. YouTube's a strange place.
It's as strange
just
as it
another
gets.
strange place. Yeah.
Well, it's the internet. And the
It's the
internet's
internet.
as strange as
Yeah,
it gets.
strange things happen on the internet. But yeah, I was really passionate. I understood. I had studied for it sounds strange, but I spent a year underground, studying politics once I had my red pill moment, if that's what you want to call
Well, explain that, because you used to be a liberal.
Right.
And then you became a conservative.
That's correct.
So what was it?
So the story really starts with high school, I guess. You know how things can happen to you in life and they don't make sense when they happen. You're like, why God me? And then you get a little older and you're like, this makes perfect sense.
Right.
So I was the quote unquote victim of a hate crime when I was in high school.
When you say quote unquote victim, you
Because
don't
I hate
think
the word
you're a
victim. No, I hate the word victim. And and again, early, I can see why early on I've sort of developed this mentality that there's no value in being a victim, and people rush to call people a victim. They rush to call somebody the aggressor.
So how do you describe it? That you experienced a hate
I
crime?
experienced something that was labeled a hate crime. I wouldn't even call it hate crime. I think we live in a label-obsessed culture, and before we seek to understand what happened, we seek to
Put it in a box.
yeah.
So what happened?
Someone has to be a demon and someone has to be an angel.
Right.
So what happened was I received some voicemail messages from about 4 kids, and the language was pretty strong. It was like, we're gonna tar and feather your family. We're gonna put a bullet in the back of your head like we did to Martin Luther King. N-word, N-word, N-word.
And you received these on your phone?
On my cell phone, yeah.
How'd they get your phone number?
Well, there was a prank phone call, so I didn't know. I was 4 male voices, and I was in high school at the time, and I was like, okay, I cannot think of 4 human beings that want me dead that would say we're gonna put a bullet in the back of your head like we did to Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, naming
Where'd you
off.
go to school? Where were you? What part of the country?
Stanford High School in Connecticut.
Okay, that's a shithole.
Yeah, it's a total shithole.
I hate Connecticut.
Yeah, no, Connecticut's not a shithole.
It's a running joke. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Right.
I always shit on Connecticut. I have my
say,
buddy Tommy Jr. who lives in
I was about to say, Connecticut is nice. What?
Connecticut, and I'm always telling him, dude, you got to move out of Connecticut. And it became this terrible running joke where I talk about that Connecticut's the worst state in the country.
Have you actually been?
Yeah, a bunch of times.
Yeah.
I used to work there all the time.
Where? What city?
Well, I used to work in all over Connecticut when I was doing stand-up. I would drive from Boston into Connecticut. I did a lot of gigs in Hartford. I did gigs.
Hartford is a shithole.
It's a shithole.
Bridgeport is a shithole.
Shout out to Marlon Starling Jr. though.
Yeah.
He was a boxer that came out of Hartford.
Yeah.
Big time boxer. Marlon Starling. But when you were in high school,
you know what's cool about this? Because this was 5 years ago. Already you can see Candace as being like an interviewer. They were talking about her, but then she was interested in him and asking him questions and being inquisitive, but in a really cool way. Very relaxed. You can see signs of someone who's about business. You know what I mean? But very relaxed, very good at it. She can make someone feel at home, even though, I mean, it's his own studio. But you can see signs of her having her own show just from that clip right there.
Right.
Somebody started doing this prank call and shit on you, and was this...
It was all in one night.
It was all in one night.
Yeah, it was like 4 voicemails.
Was this tied to like a boyfriend?
No,
or
so I was
jealous?
at a boyfriend's house when I got the calls, and I just like put it to silent because it was like blocked number. So I was like, I didn't think anything of it. And then like when I listened to it, like it was like some pretty horrific stuff. Like I definitely cried. You know, I was 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day at school, I took this like philosophy class, and like I don't know what the topic was. I don't know what prompted me to raise my hand and like introduce what had happened last night as like, you know, a segue. Maybe I just needed to get off my chest, but like the teacher like spazzed out and was like, get up, we're going to the principal's office, like, you know, you have to report this. He brings me into the office. The principal like freaked out. Like she just like, the language was like, you know, it was shocking, you know. And then she called like the resource officer, and then like the next period of my life was like a blackout, because it turned out that 3 of the kids I had never even met. Like this was like maybe some kids that had their first beer. One of the kids I was like friends with, but we were arguing because he was upset that I was like spending so much time with my boyfriend.
Oh,
but I didn't.
That's
but he's gay. Like it wasn't like he just was like jealous. Like, you know, like just like I used to hang out with him every day. Started hanging out with my boyfriend. It was like a stupid thing.
Maybe he wasn't 100% gay.
Yeah, no, he's 100% gay, from what I'm told. But yeah, so then
he just got petty, and jealous,
and then
so
it was like, here are my 3 friends, and we're all gonna get drunk and call this black girl. And you know, it's easy to say awful things into like this. Like if you don't have to look at a human being, like it's easy to say awful things. But unfortunately for me, one of the people in the car happened to be the current governor of Connecticut's son.
Oh.
So this turned from like some kids prank called to like said some awful things to like front page of the newspaper. Throughout the entire state of Connecticut, a little bit in New York. NAACP outside of my school. It was like this situation that was talk about outrage culture, my first like introduction to outrage culture and the things that sort of formed my thoughts. Like this was a very formative experience in my life. Which to me, it was non-political, but it was like my life wasn't mine. Like I went from like sitting down I was watching Talladega Nights with my boyfriend to being the most discussed person in the state of Connecticut. And what was interesting about it was just that because it was the governor of Connecticut's son that was in this car, they had to get the FBI involved to determine the authenticity of the like maybe she called herself, right? He instead of just saying like yes it was my son, he actually let the FBI investigate for 6 weeks and waited for his son to get arrested 6 weeks later. You know what I mean? Like,
did his son deny it?
I just want to see if they could get away with it, because this is politics. You know what I mean? Like, can we get away with it? Is it plausible for us to get away with it? You know, so 6 weeks of the entire state. I like left school. People were like fighting on my behalf, fighting.
You left school? You like?
This is so crazy. This is so crazy that she had to go through it. But what I'm getting is it was made bigger than what she thought it should have been. And so she's saying that it wasn't really a hate crime. It was just like them pranking, especially since one of them were her friends. This is a mess. This is a mess. Can you imagine like the chaos, especially if the NAACP show up at the doorstep of your high school? Just a circus. Oh my gosh.
Like, I'm gonna take a break.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was just like
left school. You like
left school. People were like fighting on my behalf, fighting.
You left school. You like I'm gonna take a break.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was just
senior
like
year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn.
This was just like it was like a monstrosity of a situation. And it was one of those things where like literally like letters to the editor, it'd be like moms, like talk about, outrage culture, right? Like, I don't believe Candace, like this happened, this girl, I believe she called herself. Like, you're like, I'm just looking for attention one night and I just decided to say I was going to hang my family from a tree.
Isn't it funny that someone would even have an opinion on that?
It's bizarre. Like,
I don't believe her.
Who even writes letters to the editor?
Right.
Like, the whole thing is weird retrospectively, right? Like, I don't believe her, but that is what like life is about, right? Like,
that same lady is probably about to write a YouTube comment right now. I don't believe you
still don't believe her.
This is how you got on fucking Fox News.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was the situation that like was just completely out of my control, and then as quick as it happened, these kids got arrested, and then as quick as it happened, it was over. Wow. For like everyone, but not for me or these kids, right? Like, so I never wanted these kids to get arrested. Like, if no one, like, this whole situation was taken out of my hands, people thought I didn't go to the police. Like, my teacher went.
Oh my God. Okay, so she didn't want them to get arrested, and it was a joke. So it seems like she knew the seriousness of it, but she didn't believe that the intentions behind it was malice. Like, they made a mistake, but it just blew up. And this is a mess. And her life forever changed. Their life forever changed. But then you have to like put yourself in that situation and think, like, what would you have done? Like, because initially, like, you would be shocked and maybe fearful for your life and fearful for your family's life. This is interesting.
To the police, it turned into the zoo. These kids were labeled publicly racists, right? The youngest kid in the car was 14. I'm not comfortable with ever labeling a 14-year-old racist, right? Or any of these kids racist. These are kids. And in my opinion, adults that fail to act like adults, and adults that fail to take a step back and say, okay, what would prompt these kids to do this? Why is it so easy to be mean, right? Why is it so easy nowadays for children to be mean? And no one, to me, like, when I really thought about that, I went through like 5 years of like anorexia because of the situation.
Because of that one call, those 4
and I was
calls.
the victim. Yeah. And
wow.
Yeah.
You went through anorexia.
Yeah, which is so weird now because like people that know me now are like, there's no way you never didn't eat. But I did did not eat for like 5 years. I had issues with anorexia because anorexia is a disease that genuinely is about control. It's about asserting control of your life. And I felt that I had my life was fine. And then like people took the narrative. I decided to determine what the narrative was. You're a victim, or maybe you're a liar. These kids are racist. These kids are this, and just nobody really thought that like you actually ruined all of our lives, right? Like for a little bit, like these kids went on to have like DUIs and get arrested and got into drugs, and it was because of this outrage.
The pressure of everything that happened.
Yeah, and I was like, would have been totally cool with an apology, like you know what I mean? Like, sorry.
Well, good for you for looking at it that way.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do because everybody loves when they.
I mean, talking about being like the bigger person, but also like in retrospect, thinking about how this situation affected their lives. Oh man. And she said she just would have been cool with an apology. And then, like, maybe them taking, like, a Black History class or something. That would have been cool.
Are allowed to get outraged. Everybody loves to get outraged. Obviously, what they did to you was horrible.
Right.
But I think a lot of kids, especially if they're drinking, they don't even understand how stupid and gross it is what they're doing. They just know they can do it, and they get a thrill out of it. And then there's that mob mentality when there's like a bunch of people together doing the same thing.
Exactly.
And you ramp it up and start saying crazy shit.
It's really understandable when you just like think about it as a human being and not as somebody who has to have opinion. Like, you're like, hey, we're going to call this black girl, right? You've got a bunch of kids. We're going to just say mean things to her on the phone, and you don't have to look her in the face. Right? It's like if I hold up this pen and I'm like, just say mean stuff, like someone's going to get, you can say anything to this pen. So it's sort of, it was a formative experience that in retrospect, I understand has so much to do with why I am who I am. Because I hated that, like that label obsessed culture and the outrage machine. And then like, oh, okay, we're done. But like, forget the people whose lives we just like
Now, do you know those people anymore?
I don't. I know like the siblings of them because I was friends. Like that's the thing. Like one of the people that was involved, I was very good friends with his brother, and it's like you're just gonna tell me this kid's like a racist? Like I actually knew the kid's mother. You know, like and nobody cared. It was just
so you
a
think
hot
that
story.
they weren't necessarily racist,
Just
but they were
stupid.
just stupid and
Stupid.
mean
Stupid.
and
Did
being
something
shitty
stupid.
kids, and they knew that that was a way that they could scare you.
Right, that they
and
could
freak
just,
you out,
yeah, and they might have been
affect
drunk,
you.
you know, like drunk. Maybe it was their first beer, right? But people
I doubt it.
can do.
17?
Yeah.
Well, the youngest was 14.
Oh wow.
The youngest, and this person was labeled a racist. Like that's to me is like that's harsh.
Right.
And people say, "Oh, you're too forgiving."
Well, how
but
do you not label them a racist? Because what they said was most certainly racist.
yes, the words are racist, right? Can somebody?
Right.
I guess the question is, can somebody say something, say a word that is racist and not be a
Interesting.
racist human being? Yes, I think. No, I'm going to tell you why. Yes, okay.
Okay.
Oh, no, that's all we get? Oh, that really made me think. Wow, very interesting conversation. But I wanted to hear more, like how that, like when did the light bulb come on for her to say, like, okay, I'm no longer a liberal, I'm a conservative, and I'm no longer the victim, because sometimes in politics, they get many of us by saying, oh, you're the victim, and so vote for us and we'll help you. Yay. And the same thing happens year after year. But very interesting conversation. Love to hear her thought process about all of this, but that it would have been so hard. But I love how she separated the ideals from the person. Like what they did was wrong. She's not saying it wasn't wrong. They were wrong. And yes, they should have been, punished, but arrested and all the hoopla and their lives ruined. Ooh, very interesting. So if you want to hear more from Candace Owens, or maybe for me to do different kinds of reactions, let me know in the comment section down below. I mean, I'm trying to put myself in her shoes, and she didn't know it was going to get out of hand like this, and the kids probably didn't know either. And it's like once the train started going, there was no stopping it.